Welcome to Adrienne Ross Squared, where we square off from A to Z. Well, where are we squaring off today? I'm going to talk about L. I want to talk about leadership. Leadership is something that I've thought about quite a bit. I have led, I do lead. I've also been blessed to be under both good and bad leadership. And you might go, well, how is bad leadership a blessing? Well, let me put it this way. Good leadership is good because you are learning, you are being inspired, you are being directed, all the things that we need. We are having it modeled before us, what it looks like for us to lead when our turn comes to lead, if that turn comes. But bad leadership is also a blessing because if nothing else, we learn what is not good leadership. We learn what we don't want to emulate. So it's all good. All things work together for good, as the Bible says, right? For those who love the Lord. So, and speaking of the Lord, I think that I have an understanding of leadership in part, in big part, in huge part, because of the biblical examples that I've placed myself under, the biblical principles and people who walk in those biblical principles. Even if we talk about John Maxwell, who is considered the #1 leadership expert in the world, I'm certified under John Maxwell. Even when we talk about him, he's a person of faith and he operates in large part under biblical principles as well. A lot of business people, a lot of successful people, they may not be coming to you talking about their faith, talking about Christianity, but the principles of people who are not even Christians, many of them are biblical principles. And when you apply those biblical principles, you're going to get a blessing. And so speaking of John Maxwell, one of his books is called Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. I have done masterminds with this book. I've gone into businesses, to churches, to organizations, and shared the principles of developing the leader within you 2.0. Again, the principles of great leadership often come from people who understand biblical principles. I'm not necessarily here to talk about the Bible today, but I can't separate what true leadership is. And I get a better understanding of why some people don't understand leadership when they see it, why some people get offended by certain things. And I've recently said, these people have never, #1, led likely or led well, or they've never been under leadership that has been done well, and they don't understand what leadership looks like. We're going to get into some things that if you're a part of the main channel, the Adrienne Ross Show, where sports and culture connect, it's going to resonate with you more because you're going to understand the stories that I'm going to talk about. Now, if you're not a part of the main channel and you don't have nothing to do with where sports and culture connect, don't go anywhere, because what we're talking about is something that can be applied to where you are right now. Now, speaking of John Maxwell, though, he said, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Again, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So when you have influence with people, how you handle that influence is extremely important. Whom do you want to follow? Do you want to emulate? What does good leadership look like? So, like I said, this is going to relate to the sports and culture. Indiana Fever fans, if you're watching me right now, hey, if you're an Indiana Fever fan, you know this has been a season of incredible adversity. It has been, to a large extent, a season of negativity, not from the players or the coaches or the front office, but from some of the fans and some content creators who have chosen to go the negative route, who have chosen to try to pit one player against another, who have pushed false narratives, who have wanted the team's demise because, unfortunately, Caitlin Clark has been injured. And so that has caused some people to absolutely crash out. So it's been a tough season. Then you have certain people who said, I'm not going into the negativity. I'm not going into the perverted mindset. And if you don't know what I mean when I say perverted, then go check out the video I did yesterday. And by yesterday, I mean on Monday on the main channel about the perverted season for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Not that they've embraced it, but it's been swirling all around them as they have remained above the fray. So I'm going to talk about some specific examples of people who don't understand leadership concerning the Indiana Fever and beyond. But first, let me lay this down. When I'm a leader, and you know this if you've been a good leader or under good leadership, I have a focus. And my focus is to pour into those people I've been entrusted with. My focus is not necessarily to keep them out of all adversity, because that's pretty much impossible. So I'm not trying to necessarily keep them out of adversity. I'd like to, but when adversity inevitably comes, that's when we get to see how I lead. I could get on the floor in a fetal position and just cry and let those who are following me cry and let them feel like there's no hope. Or I can muster up strength to speak life and encouragement and inspiration to the people who are looking to me for some kind of hope and direction. That's where leaders are different from other people. Because if you're not a leader, when everything seems to be falling apart, you can go on and go to sleep. You're not losing sleep. You're not trying to figure it out. You're just figuring somebody else will take care of it. When you're the leader, you are the somebody else. You have a group of people in front of you, and your job is to inspire them and to pull out what is in them so that they never lose hope. That's what leadership is about. Sometimes it means you've got to turn your attention from over here and you've got to move your attention to who's in front of you, and you've got to speak to those people and you've got to lead. Sometimes it's not just about your attention being here. Sometimes your attention is everywhere, and you've got to go, okay, here we are. What are we going to do with this moment? How does this relate to any situation that I'm going to tie in the Indiana Fever? Sometimes, sadly, in life, in a family, you've got a woman, a wife, whose husband walked away from her, from all the kids, and the kids are distraught. And you want to let them be sad, and you want to comfort them. You want to hold them. You want to do all those. At some point, you've got to stand up and you've got to tell them, we're going to be okay. This is who we have right here. We're in one another's corner. You can get the job done. I can't think, mommy, I got a test today and I can't. Going to be okay. Or you yourself may have lost a spouse and you've got to raise kids. It's happened to husbands. I don't even want to act like only men leave women. I've known someone who had young children and decided she was done with her marriage. She had it. She was up. She was out, left the kids, everything. Right? If there's a husband in that situation, a father in that situation, is he just going to say, well, my heart's so broken. I've got these kids. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to close the door of the bedroom and I'm just going to, no. Or if you lose a spouse, someone passes away, you mourn, you look at the situation for what it is. But at some point, if you're the one being looked to, you have to be able to pull the pieces together. If you are working for a company and you've got this huge contract you have to fulfill and you're on a deadline and two of your people decide we're out of here, we're not even giving notice or anything, we're out of here, you can fall apart. You can constantly focus on those people who are not there to help, or you can pull your team together and say, we can get this done. We got to get this together. We got to do this together. Everything you have been going through was to prepare you For this moment, I believe in you. Let's go. That situation will enable you to know what's in you, which you never would have known had that situation not come up. Not that we wanted that situation, but here we are. And so now this is your opportunity to grow and to find out what's already in you. That's what leaders have to do. And if you've never led, you just don't get it. Some people lead, some people criticize other people who lead, and some who don't lead, who haven't led, don't understand. So when I think about the Indiana Fever and all the negativity, all the twisties, you know what I'm talking about if you're on the main channel, the people who've come in and twisted everything about this team, though the team has stayed together, though the team has been close, though they show us and they tell us and they show us how they are in one another's corner, there are still people who want to find a problem, and they will find it wherever they create it. Okay, because you know how it is. When you want to find a problem and it's not there, you still won't be rewarded with what you're looking for. You won't be disappointed because you will create it. Sad, but it's true. So when I look at the Indiana Fever, and I think it's some of the criticism, first of all, with the Coach Stephanie White. There are people who had decided they're not going to like her. She's trying to sabotage the team, etc. So they're already looking for stuff, right? Now, you don't have to agree on someone's coaching style. That's a whole different story. When you start getting into people's character and calling them, oh, they don't really like this color person and they're trying to sabotage it, and to start doing all that stuff because you're just sowing discord, because you don't like what someone said, and then you're going to just hammer on that thing. Here's what I find when I think about something Stephanie White said that a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people, but the noisy people had a problem with. With Caitlin Clark's injury, Stephanie White said at one point that though we don't like this situation, this can be a blessing in disguise, or this is a blessing in disguise. However she said it. The sick part is that there are people who purposely twisted what she said to mean we're really glad that Caitlin is hurt. This is what we've been praying for. I think for the most part, that's disingenuous. I think for the most part, people know that that's not what she was saying, but it doesn't fit their agenda to admit that what she was saying made absolute sense. So from a leadership perspective, okay, I'm going to help you understand what a coach has to do. A coach understands personnel, and a coach understands when you have a star player who is a huge part of your team's offense, a huge part of not only scoring, but assisting and just being an example and bringing in the people's eyeballs to watch it. And you have built around that person. A coach understands how the team could totally fall apart. This team has not done that. And you can look to the players, absolutely, but to the coaching staff and the front office who have created a culture. Some people will say, oh, really? You're better off without Caitlin? It's a blessing? Oh, really? You showed us what you mean. People who understand leadership understand that what she's saying is that sometimes you just don't know what you have in you until you have to know. It's not good that this happened. We don't want this to be the case. It is the case, though. And for you, wow, I want to point this out to you, player. Did you see what you were able to do in the last game? You didn't know that before, right? You didn't have to know before. Now you have to know. And so for you, this is a blessing because this is going to help you, not the situation of her being hurt. Duh. Everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, because there are some people out there who are just so stuck in their mindset that they believe the lies of that's just what they want to believe, and they've given themselves to believe, and they have blinders on their eyes. But other people would say, yeah, I totally get what she's saying, and I totally get why a leader has to say, You over here, you didn't know that you could make that pass, right? You didn't know that you could hit that shot, right? You didn't know that you could play those minutes. And now you know, excuse the pun. Now you know. That's the blessing of the situation. Again, it's like the scripture that says, all things work together for good to them who love God and are called according to his purpose. Does that mean that all things in themselves are good? No. But sometimes until you're in that moment, you don't realize what you can accomplish. And you have to realize that, because you can never count that one person is always going to be there. That's leadership. That's what leadership is. That's what it looks like. And I know that there are people, because they're fans, and we love Caitlin, but because they're fans, they're offended, right? And so how dare she say that? Understand leadership. If I'm a leader, I can't be your fan either, because if I'm your fan, then I can't lead. And I've said this over and over again on the main channel. Yes, I'm a fan of, Stephanie White's a fan of Caitlin's game. She always was since she was in junior high and all that. She's a fan of the game, but she can't fulfill her role as a leader if she functions as a fan. So the fans want her to talk about Caitlin at every press conference. The fans want her to say, we're going to crash without Caitlin. The fans want her to say, we can't do anything without, we're done, we're destroyed. Oh my goodness. That's what fans do. Some, right? But as a coach, as a leader, I'll lose the team if I do that. No, I can't do that. I cannot even coach you if I'm too much of a fan, because I won't correct you. I won't see your faults. I won't even help you to get even higher, because, I'm such a fan. You have reached the ceiling. Leadership is not fandom. Leadership is leadership. Leadership is influence. And I have to encourage the people who have to go out and perform. Caitlin, like Ari, like Sophie, like Sydney, like Chloe, like who else am I missing? My goodness, so many people went down with injuries. All of them. Every one of them is a part of the whole thing. Now I got to focus. I was over here, and then I got, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? I got to come back here to these people who are going to step on the court, and I got to make sure they know, yo, this is your time. You step up. That's what was meant by that. And every leader knows that. Kelsey Mitchell made some statements that made some people upset as well, because people have been looking for reasons to be upset with Kelsey. People don't want Kelsey to be the leading scorer because somehow they think that's disrespectful to Caitlin when Caitlin is injured. Caitlin is cheering Kelsey on, because we need Kelsey. There's a lot of pressure on Kelsey Mitchell, and she has done an incredible job. People are mad at her because they think it's supposed to be all about Caitlin all the time, and not recognize that those two, they're a team, okay? And people are upset because Kelsey Mitchell's sister posted whatever she posted, as if that's Kelsey, and as if any one of us can control our siblings. I don't know about you, but I got a few siblings. I can't control any of them, okay? So regardless, we're adults here. At least some of you might be younger, but for the most part, we're adults. So people are looking for offense, or people just don't understand what Kelsey was saying. So I'm going to play what Kelsey said, and then we're going to talk about how this is another prime example of leadership. This is Ashwin on X.
We're all we got, we all we need.
Yeah, so we all we got, we all we need. Yeah.
How did that kind of come about? And do you remember when you started sharing that message?
Probably might have been after somebody got hurt. I won't even lie to you. It was early on. I think it was when CC got hurt, and I felt like it was deflating. It was hard for people to kind of see us and see our energy for what we brought to the table as a team. Hats off to CC for being a great teammate and having to go through so much with injury. But like the all we got, all we need was just it's a staple to who we trying to be as a team and who we want our culture to be. We can't help the ones that's not here, which is unfortunate, but we can help who is. And be present about that and not disrespect the game, because, I would like to think that CC, Ari, Sid will want to play and be in our shoes. And so I think the all we got, all we need is just, it's kind of like our thing, but to put it in the air that we all we got and we all we need, because that's how it is and that's how it's always been. I don't know. It's good to make everybody feel have a piece of the puzzle and feel good about that piece of the puzzle. So, you know.
And what you see right there is leadership. Like she said, it's unfortunate CC went down, and then all the others went down. And she said they even. I remember hearing one interview where they said it was Lexi and Kelsey, and they said I think it was the game where both Ari and Sydney went down, same game, and she's like they just lost it. The tears, they just had this breakdown. Okay, have your breakdown, but at some point you got to go. We can't help that. It's unfortunate. Shout out to CC and Arian and everybody for being great teammates. Man, they want to be there, but they can't be there. And we can only control what we can't control. We can't control that they're injured. All we can control is right here. You have to know this is all we got. Not in terms of the team culture. We know that. They let us know that all the time. But in terms of who's getting out there on that floor, here's what we got. And you have to understand, if I'm a leader, right, I gotta have a presence, and I gotta look at you in the face, and I gotta say, understand, this is all we got. Not only that, because you know that. You realize that right now, right? Right? Or maybe you didn't. You're kind of like, I wish your kind of focus is off, and you're just like, wait a minute, this is all we got. But here's the leadership at its best. This is all we need. You have to believe you're enough. If you don't believe you're enough, you can't get the job done. So to be offended by someone who is dealing with reality and carrying the weight and the joy of leadership, you have to be able to inspire people and somehow in the midst of the chaos, let them know, listen, this is it right here. And here's another thing. This is why the team had told us early on with this latest injury of Caitlin Clark, meaning the groin injury on July 15th, when they said she's out indefinitely. So I don't know where all the people are talking about this day-to-day thing. I think Sophie misspoke one time. She was corrected almost immediately. And it was, she's out indefinitely. Why? Because you've got to continue on with the mindset that this is all we got. You can't keep looking over your shoulder. You can't keep looking over your shoulder. What if, when, if, what? This is what, if something else happens, then let it be a pleasant surprise. But as far as we know, this is what we have. That means you got to be that blessing and you have to step up. You can't focus. Same thing with these players. They can't be stargazing fans. They have to be players. They're professional. They have games to win. So in their culture, in their locker room, they're all together. In terms of who's coming on that floor, as a leader, I got to let you know. And your mindset has got to shift to, well, will they, when they, will they, we need to, this is all we got. This is what we need. We're enough, right? And whatever happens, happens. I can't worry about that. It's got to be, it doesn't matter because we got what we need. Reminds me, some of you know, you've seen pictures of me on my Harley Davidson, which I sold a few years ago. But I remember I was visiting a friend at camp. It was like about close to an hour from my house. And I was ready to leave their camp to take the trip back home in the evening. And there was a forecast of rain. And if you know anything about riding a motorcycle, you know the ground gets slick when it rains because all the oil from the car, whatever. So if you have to stop at a light and put your foot down, got to keep that in mind. And just riding on the road, you don't want to ride in the middle because that's where the oil collects. And so there's all these things that you have to know for safety in terms of riding your Harley or whatever motorcycle you're riding. And so I had asked a friend of mine, I was getting ready to go home. And I said, I was hesitant a little bit. And I'm like, I didn't want to be stuck out there in the rain. I did have a rain suit in my saddlebags, but I don't want to deal with the rain out there. And then the helmet and the rain gets on the helmet, all the stuff. And so I said, do you think it's going to rain? And he said, I don't know. And he said, but your attitude has to be, it doesn't matter. And that stuck with me for that moment. But I also thought about that when thinking about leadership. He said, your attitude has to be, it doesn't matter. So in other words, I am confident enough in my ability. I'm confident enough that I can get from A to Z, excuse the pun, Adrienne Ross squared, A to Z. I have to be confident enough that if it rains, it rains. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm good. I'm capable of it. I'll be fine. And I'm like, that's what's up right there. Like, we want the ideal circumstances. We want the weather to be perfect. We want the circumstances on our team. We want there to be no storms to weather. But the fact of the matter is, it's got to be a matter of, it doesn't matter. Whatever hands we're dealt, we're up to the task. This is all we got. This is all we need. That's what moms say, single moms say to their kids. That's what single dads say to their kids. That's what husbands and wives say going through adversity. That's what corporations say. That's what churches say. That's what basketball teams say. And that's what Stephanie White and Kelsey Mitchell were saying. This is what we got right here. There's a whole group of people. We're in this together. So even if you're not on the floor, you're a part of it. And those of you who are on the floor, you're enough. Let's get it done together. That's leadership. Poor management. Notice I said management, because being a manager and being a leader, not the same. Poor management just doesn't know how to inspire, doesn't know how to speak life into people. None of that stuff, just constantly looking over the shoulder, constantly in the mully grubs. You can't be that way. Even as a leader, if I have to cry alone, right? Even if I have to cry with my team at first, some point, okay, I come out here, I wipe my eyes, I wipe my face, I stand up straight and I say, let's get the job done, because there are people counting on you. Leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less than that. Just wanted to share that with you. I can identify people who don't recognize leadership, and I guess you can't blame them if they've never experienced it, but people can do themselves a favor by putting themselves in a place where they're not overly critical and where they recognize maybe something here I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So sometimes a leader will come along and try to make things a little bit more clear. Thank you so much for tuning in to Adrienne Ross Squared, where, of course, we square off from A to Z. If you've not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Please turn your notifications on. Thumbs up this video if it resonates with you. And also, if you're not a part of the main channel, The Adrienne Ross Show, the link to that channel is in the description of this video. I will catch you next time, God willing. God bless you abundantly.